All right, everybody, thank you for joining me. And today we are going to be talking about our new little mini series going over the different niches in the Pokemon TCG and investing in business and what might be right for you as a path as you get further into the Pokemon TCG. So today we are going to be talking about full-time Pokemon at home business. That's right, this is going to be the first part of our series before we move forward into the different segments. Of course, every week on Wednesday we'll release one of these segments and for you to enjoy and actually learn about each one of these niches. Now today I have with me Dan from Catch 'em All Collectibles. Again, thank you for joining me, Dan. And if you'd like to, can you do a quick introduction? That would be great.
Yeah, so I'm Dan from Catch 'em All Collectibles. I'm 32. Fairly common origin story. I was in fifth grade back in '99 during the boom, during the mania when it came out. Heavily involved in the cards, the anime, the video games for 2 or 3 years, as were most people. The fad died, the bubble popped, whatever you want to say. I got out of it for over a decade. 2014, I got back into it and I dove in headfirst. 7 years of part-time, and then the last year has been full-time. So we'll get further into the full-time switch over as we go through the questions. But yeah, that's a quick, short, sweet version of my backstory.
All right, well, thank you for that, Dan. And now I will just kind of go over a quick backstory since this is the first time that we were doing this type of series. So I'm Andy from NorthwoodsCollectors. I started on this hobby back again in 2019. Of course, I started up in 1999. I started up as a tournament player. I actually was doing a lot of tournaments around the area. I was doing even back in the day some of the regional tournaments up until about 2006. 2006, hobby got a little bit too strenuous, too much time. I was focusing more on my career, my job, and of course moving on to different directions in life. So I sold off my whole collection. At that point, I was even staking stuff like seal booster boxes and that, and I sold all of them. I have a friend that actually still has those boxes. Really interested to see that he still contains those that I actually had back in 2006. A really awesome little segue. And that's pretty much where I am. That's where I've come from, and that's where I've just continued. In 2019, got back into tournament play, started to move forward with the tournament play up until COVID happened. I got shut down pretty quickly there. Early 2020, but I had already started moving into collecting raw and reselling raw cards. I've done a lot with the tournament players. I know what most of the tournament player cards are that are really good. I get those cards and I sell those off to my tournament friends in order to build their collections and get what they're looking for. We all work together to kind of build our battle deck, so it gives us a great advantage to be able to build without spending a ton of money when it comes down to it. So today, the reason for these videos, and of course the reason I want to do this is because there's a lot of different niches and aspects in the Pokemon TCG. There's a lot of different areas that you can go to in the Pokemon TCG, and this is to give you a perspective of each one of them and what it could take to get into those particular markets. Now, I'm not trying to deter anybody from joining the hobby. I'm not trying to make this a plus or minus on any one of these. It's just a strict same relative questions on every one of them to see what it actually takes to partake in there and give you that perspective before you get into it and realize this isn't something that you enjoy or want to do. So today we're going to go ahead and I've got a list of questions here, and we're going to go down through these questions throughout time and give Dan an opportunity to tell us what his perspectives are on each one of these. So today the first question that I have for you is, what did you do before you became a full-time Pokemon business?
Yeah, so right out of college, I went to college for engineering. Math and science were always my two subjects throughout school. So chemical engineering specifically was a very, very good fit. I worked for one company right out of college. I actually interned for them between my junior and senior years. And then there was pretty much a job waiting for me due to the successful internship right when I graduated. And July of 2011 to July of 2021, I was a full-time chemical engineer. As I mentioned, 2014 is when I got back into the hobby. So like part-time Pokemon came about a few years into the venture in chemical engineering. And then, yeah, I made it the full decade. I actually, I didn't stick around long enough to get my 10-year anniversary, like gift basket. I would have gotten it at the end of that year, but I think it was a week or two after my 10-year anniversary to the day that I put in my 2-week notice.
it just comes down to it. I mean, sometimes you think you got it, and I even did that in college too. You thought I'd be really interested in machining, went for machining for quite a few years, and then kind of decided that that wasn't really for me. And that's when I really started to switch gears, going back to what I enjoyed, which is, of course, moving back to northern Wisconsin from Colorado and going back to HVAC business and doing that. I mean, that was my big move, especially when I had a family. It kind of really reorientates what you're looking at when it comes down to that.
Yeah, and mine, which I think there'll be a further question that I'll get into it more, but it
Mhm.
wasn't so much not liking the engineering. It was just the opportunities that came about in Pokemon that had me go. But if anyone's watched my content, if anyone's familiar and didn't know I was an engineer, it's probably not that surprising to hear it with the spreadsheets and some of the analysis that I try to bring into the space. I very much still an engineer. I'm just a cardboard engineer now.
You've just switched it, and that's always good to be able to run them data and understand the data and be able to really. I say it's a good advantage to be able to crunch numbers and understand what those numbers mean in the long run
Mhm.
of any kind of the hop. Even for myself and doing the raw and the sealed, you need to be able to understand the numbers and be able to address it and be able to understand things and move forward. So,
Mhm.
all right. Next question we have is, what progression did you make in the Pokemon business before going full time?
Yeah, so as I said, 2014, when I got into it, it was solely a hobby endeavor. It was I had no thought that 7 years later I'd be quitting my job to do it full time. I had no thought that I'd ever make money from it or take money out of it. Basically, I found my old binder. It sparked that nostalgia. It sparked a little bit of curiosity. So I turned to eBay. Are these cards still worth something? And I actually remember, I think it's a fairly big part of the reason that I like Gengar so much. Phantom Forces was the newest set when I got back in. And I definitely liked Gengar some when I was a child. But I think part of my how much I like him today is just furthered by the fact that I got in at Phantom Forces, which was a big Gengar set. So yeah, 2014, I got in. I was doing pretty well financially at that time. I actually allocated like 5 grand towards the hobby, fun money that I could play around with. And the engineer in me, just the way that I was, I wanted to be the most efficient as possible. So I wanted my $5,000 to go as far as possible. Very quickly, I learned about PSA. Very quickly, I learned that buying lots was a good way to go. If you want one card, the best way to buy it, generally speaking, isn't to buy that one card. It's to buy a big lot that includes that card. You get everything at a slight discount, you sell the excess, and then you keep what you wanted. If you do it well enough, you keep it and get some money too, or you keep it for free, or maybe instead of keeping the card for $500, maybe you've only got 50 into it with everything else you sold, putting your time into it. So iterating that through multiple times between 2014 and I mean successively over the years, uh, it just snowballed into everything I have today. That's really the progression as far as how it went from 2014 onward. A hobby that just ballooned into a side hustle, part-time job almost, and yeah, that's I'm here today now.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's going to be a similarity to a lot of us that have been in here, at least in the hobby for before 2020, is that you're going to hear probably even for myself. I mean, when I started doing sealed product at the late 2019 and early 2020, my scheme was is that I would purchase extra, buy 5, and then I would sell 4 because I wanted to keep one for a long term just to hold it. But
Yep.
once again, I only came in and I said I got $3,000 when I joined Pokemon, and I said I got $3,000 to do the investing and the collecting. I got to see how far this money will go, and we put it on the side. I started it, and then just kind of kept rolling it over and doing that. And then of course I got lucky because I started in 2019, and we all know what happened in 2020, which means my
Yep.
inventory pretty much went all out the door because I took every opportunity I could to capitalize on what the market was at that point. But definitely, I think is a really safe bet is just take a certain amount of money. And I think I just did a video recently with that where you just whatever it is, set a dollar amount and use that to your advantage. Try and leverage it, and then sometimes if you're just learning, especially if you don't deal with markets a lot, do a small amount and do a trial on it. Buy a card, send it to PSA, go through the process at a small scale, and that way you learn it. That way you get that progression of, okay, now I feel comfortable doing $1,000 worth of raw cards, or you can continue to keep getting bigger and bigger as you get more and more comfortable and understanding of why things are the way they are. So,
Yeah, and another quick way to sum up the progression. Early on, I was more rich in time and poor in cash flow finances, I guess. Now time is a more limiting factor, but I am more established financially. And yeah, if you have money you can allocate towards it, and you have a lot of time and you enjoy it too. Like it's great when you enjoy it and can profit from it. You're profiting from it in two ways. So if you've got the time, you can really, I mean, you can do some damage still, even in the market. It's not 2020. You can't do anything and make money. You can't sneeze and make money, but there's still a lot of opportunities out there even today.
oh, absolutely. I mean, if you can see a lot of opportunities out there, and the longer I think that you're in this hobby, and the more that you're involved, the more you're going to see those opportunities start to present themselves.
Mhm.
Definitely start to see them more often. Sometimes they're, you know, glaring opportunities that are sitting in front of you, and other times a little bit of research and understanding who would buy something and why this is popular, why this may be popular, can go a long ways when you're trying to make decisions in in Pokemon, or if we want to even broaden it out, any TCG. I've actually taken what I've learned from the last 3 years of craziness in the Pokemon TCG and gone back towards Magic, and gone into now playing a little bit with Dragon Ball Z. So it works on a lot of the different collectibles by understanding those markets. All right, next question we got for you, Dan, is what was the final deciding factor that made you go full time?
So as I said in 2014, I was very rich in time. Uh, by 2020, I was very time poor. For a short period there at the end of 2019, I actually bought the house I'm currently living in 2019 in November as a fixer upper while I still owned my other house. So I was carrying two mortgages. I was renovating a new house that I was intending to move into in early 2020. Uh, we had a child. I was now married, and we had another baby on the way. So all those things were going on. 2020, rockets to the moon, everything I owned, and I had a massive backlog. I had so many collections from 2014 to 2020 had been bought. I bought a $10,000 collection, sold $10,000 worth, and all the profit I just kept as inventory. I just pushed it back and pushed it back and pushed it back. And when 2020 hit, I had mountains of stuff. So my six-figure inventory 10x into the seven figures. And so largely the financial side of it is what allowed me to go full time. In 2021 is when I ended up quitting my job. That was after we had our second child. Little bit of Most of it was positives leading me towards Pokemon full time. Little bit of negative political crap was going on at work too, if I'm going to be honest, that pushed me away. Any corporate space, climbing the ladder. I mean, I'm not going to get into specifics, but people probably know what I'm talking about. So that encouraged me a little bit further on top of the financials and just I actually had a live stream earlier today, the day we're recording, but this is probably going up a few days later. I talked about it a little bit, but I never envisioned myself working the corporate 9 to 5 for 40 years until 65, like is the normal path. I never really intended to work there more than like 20 years. I saved quite heavily, so I was already on a good trajectory. And then Pokemon going to the moon really set it off. So, yeah, I had that foundation laid. I paid off all my debts. I had enough capital, and I had a spouse with a stable job with health insurance. So I really had a lot of things in place that gave me a core, strong foundation to take the leap. And yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. And that's what I always, you had the advantage of starting in 2014, which gave you the ability to get a lot of these products at a lot lower rates than what we were seeing here even 2019 going into 2020. I mean, a lot of people think that the market really exploded with Logan Paul, but in general, that's why I started doing sealed product even in 2019 is we were seeing a progression of things getting more expensive in the Pokemon TCG starting. I always think way I look at it when I was really looking at numbers, it looks like about Team Up. Team Up really started to move the market. That tag team series really started to move the market. Hidden Fates came and really started to push the market back in the upward direction pretty good. And then by 2020 it was going up. But in that short time period, even $3,000 was not a lot of money to be able to build an inventory that I was hoping to have, in time and had plans to get to. But now things that I wanted to purchase and get involved with are now almost impossible to get. Because like you said, the pricing went 10x, some things 15, 20x on some of the products that I was looking at, and they haven't come back just because they aren't as easy to find because Sword and Shield has a lot of print, but a lot of things before this are nowhere near the print levels what we've seen in Sword and Shield. So it's chewed up. Collectors got it. People that are investors are holding on to a lot of this stuff. And it's always going to be expensive to get back into that. And that was always a disadvantage I had with starting in 2019 that the extra years I feel was very successful for you for getting those collections and getting that stuff in hand with a longer time period to put it away.
Oh yeah, and a huge portion of that was just dumb luck. Very fortunate timing. I did not project whatsoever the trajectory of prices from 2014 to 2019 even, and then 2020, as you said, just absolutely went into the stratosphere.
Yeah. I don't even in 2019 I don't think I know I never projected that we would be seeing what we did, but COVID hadn't happened yet, so we had all that going on, and then nobody expected what happened in October of 2020. I don't think anybody that says they're projected that out, I would love to put them on a lie detector and really grill them on that because there ain't no way that they pulled that off.
Yeah.
No. Next question we got for you, Dan, is estimated hours worked to income per month in Pokemon before you went full time. And these can be all relative. I'm not going to make you project out what your financial situations are, but you could always elaborate it into percentages.
Yeah, the first 5 years, I didn't take a cent out of the hobby. So my profit, I mean, I was still paying taxes on gains to the IRS. I was doing things with an inventory. So I was making money on paper, but I wasn't functionally pulling a salary out. So I started being profitable quite quickly. Every year from 2014 to 2019, I showed a profit, but it was never taken as a salary, just plowed right back into those mountains of inventory that I talked about. As far as very, very hard to estimate exactly what my income was. My hourly rate, honestly, pre-boom compared to post-boom, if you take all the time that I put into the hobby from 2014 to 2019, I probably would have been better off having worked more hours at my job and tried harder to climb the ladder and increased my salary multiples at my chemical engineering job. But yeah, I pretty much put in 40 45 hour weeks. I didn't really go crazy there because I was enjoying what I was doing on the side. But yeah, it's I don't think I was making $20 an hour if you averaged it all out from 2014 to 2019. The amount of hours that I was putting in were very hefty. And then I think your next point is going to get into the 2020 and post side of that. Yeah.
Yep. For you, especially for you, it's going to really kind of amplify on that side of it. So just to bring in the next question, which is going to be estimated hours worked for income per month in Pokemon. Hours of income per month, or income per month for Pokemon in when you went full time. So what was the shift for when you went full time to how much money you were making per hour?
Yeah. Again, it's not the answer people are probably looking for. People would probably like specific things, but I guess going slightly back to the first part, 2014 to 2019, I actually I asked my wife approximately how much she thought I was putting in. And I'm like, I think I was doing 40 to 50 at my normal job. I estimated 30, but realistically, there were probably a couple of years that I was putting more like 40 to 50 hours a week, working two full-time jobs almost.
Mhm.
Exactly when and how much that was, I don't remember exactly, but throughout 2020, there was a stretch where I wasn't doing nearly as much. It was getting really hard because I had the second house, we had the kid, another kid on the way. It was really coming down to, as we went into the boom, man, Pokemon's going nuts. I feel like I'm missing so many opportunities to make a lot of money here. I've got a lot of inventory that I don't even have time to sell into the boom. But what really makes it hard to estimate my salary too, as far as my income per hour worked, a lot of what I'm selling even today and a lot of what I sold in 2020 wasn't necessarily active, replicable income per se. It was more realizing long-term capital gains. So when I have an Evolutions box that I bought a few years ago for 80 and I sell it for in 2020, $800, $900, whatever it peaked at, or if I sell it today at 600, I do that once. It only takes me 10 minutes and I make $500 profit on paper. I didn't just make $3,000 an hour. What I functionally did was I realized a long-term capital gain, and I can't do that more than I have of products, right? So if you try to separate out like what I'm actively making when I buy my wholesale modern product and flip that, or when I buy a collection and flip it, I'm actually getting into consignments a little bit. Certain parts of the business, like you can calculate if I make a consignment in the average, if I'm making 7% net and the average item is $250, I might be making 50 or $80 an hour, but I'm not doing that all day, every day. Then there's other times where I'm just flipping ultra modern and I might be making $30 an hour doing that. It's extremely variable. I might buy a special delivery Charizard and I might grade that as a 10 and then auction it off for $900 and I might make $500 an hour for that hour. Like it's all very sporadic. It's all very variable. Overall though, I'm making more doing this full time than I did as a chemical engineer. That might sound crazy, but I live in the woods in upstate New York. I was not making like six figures as a chemical engineer, just for a point of reference. I am making six figures now doing this. Doing both together, I could be making more than I am today doing just Pokemon, but the work-life balance just wasn't there doing both.
Yeah, and that's the toughest part is that even, a lot of people ask, they always like to laugh because I own my own business. My father and my brother and I kind of all work together and own our own business. And I always want to quantify out time per hour. And I always laugh at that because summertime I make less because I just pay myself a salary every month. Every week I pay myself a salary. We just salary pay each other. That way you're not playing the whole, you know, well, you worked more hours, you worked less hours. Well, no, we're just salary. Some month or weeks I work 60 hours a week, 65 hours a week, and then in the wintertime or sometimes during the on-peak hours, I'm working 30. So it always balances out at the end of the year. But like you said, it's really hard even in my stuff. When I'm selling products and if I'm really able to put the time to actually selling things. So if I'm active on TCG Player, if I'm active on eBay, if I'm active on Craigslist and trying to move product, even at a small scale that I am here, I can move, 3 digits pretty easily in a week or two if I'm able to put the time to it. And that was kind of where this question came from is that when you get more time, you can typically push more product. You get more time to spend on the internet, getting yourself seen, getting views, getting that kind of rotations through. And as you get more time or put more time towards this business to, in Pokemon or in any kind of business, you typically get better investment returns on yourself because of that time spent, because you're able to quantify and focus on what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at times it can be really feast or famine. Like depending on what aspect you're doing, what part of the market you're playing in, a large part of the market that I've played in still today and all the way back to 2014 is just buying lots, buying collections on eBay, Golden, Heritage, PWCC, wherever,
Mm-hmm.
breaking them down, grading some of the raw cards, optimizing the platform that I sell them on, and just reselling, just buying lots, breaking them down, and reselling them individually. If I get a really good buy, if I get a really good score, again, I could make 10 grand on a lot that only takes me 10 hours to sell. But it could have taken me 50 hours of searching. A good hourly wage, but there's a lot of dry time spent trying to source a collection, or trying to find that next score. And they're not, sometimes it's feast or famine. Sometimes they're coming in one after another, and sometimes there's long droughts.
Yep. And that's just it. When you're talking about a collectibles market, there is a lot of variation in it. And to go full time, I commend you for it, because you sit there and look at paths at how you could be full time in this hobby, and it's a huge risk, because you could, like you said, you could have a feast for the next 2 years, but is that collectible market going to hold up 3-4 years down the road to where you can sustain yourself? Or could you last 3 months if all of a sudden we go into a recession and you can't sell that product anymore, or it's really difficult to sell that product? So like I said, I could 100% understand the collectibles market, looking at it even from a sealed collector's perspective. It's very difficult to get through those times when you're in difficult famine areas, when it's just not selling. People aren't looking for it, or you got the wrong product for what people are looking for that week or month. So it is kind of an interesting way that it goes. Next question I've got here is that I'm going to go and kind of put you on the spot on this one, because I thought about it while you were actually talking on that one. When it comes to purchasing collections right now, what are you seeing for the availability to them, to the pricing? And what I mean by that is, for example, I get a lot of people that contact me to purchase collections because they know I'm local, and they'll try and sell stuff for me as a collection. But they have priced every single card out on TCG Player and come to me asking me to buy it at that TCG Player price. Are you seeing that a lot?
Well, I thought you were gonna say like at 85%, leaving a little bit of room, but like
No.
85% doesn't even functionally leave room, because fees are 15% to begin with. But yeah, if they're asking full retail, I get that very frequently. I get a lot of people to come to me, hey, do you want to buy my collection? And it's just a video of binder pages, or it's an Excel spreadsheet with no pricing. And it's like, I only look at offers with prices, because then I can quickly say, like, did they do a calculation of market price and then do a multiplier to leave me room? Or are they just asking full market price? What went in? Like 95% of the time, when people come to me without a number, the number ends up being too high, and I just spend an hour or two of my time giving them a free appraisal of their collection.
Yeah.
And it's just not fruitful too frequently. So pictures and prices, I need both of them to make any offer. And I'm actually just recently started buy it now consigning, because I found more and more people just want that absolute top dollar. So now I'm going to say, here's my cash offer to buy it, or I can sell it for you and I'll just take 20%. I think that'll lead to more successful interactions, because everyone just wants top dollar, it seems, all the time, which I can't fault them for it. But if you want top dollar, you got to sell it yourself and do the work. You got to find the end consumer. You can't sell to a dealer for top dollar. General, unless they're a collector and a dealer, and you find their niche item that they're after, and you get them to kind of overpay for inventory that is more like collection piece than inventory.
Yeah, or you can find someone that's playing the market and thinks that these cards will go up in the near future. But yeah, I've come to that point too, and people will just send me pictures of cards and ask me, what would you pay me for these? And I tell them, tell me what you want, and I'll let you know if I'm willing to pay that. I'm not going to, like you said, I'm not going to be your appraisal service, because if you're looking for top dollar pricing and you're just going to sit there and go, okay, I'm going to offer you $400 for the whole collection, you're going to go to the next person and go, well, can I get $450 for this? And you're just going to kind of play that game. And like you said, shoot, if I tell everybody, if you want to do business, send me the collection that you want to sell, and then sell me, tell me the price you want for that collection. And then I also like to throw in a lot of times, and if you got bulk, I'm willing to give you a few bucks for bulk too, just to get that. Because sometimes you miss those like tournament cards and them selling cards that actually sell really quickly on TCG Player for a couple bucks. in
Mm.
that bulk selection too. So I do try and sneak that out of people when I can.
Yeah, I always say the one trying to initiate the transaction should be the one to come with a number first. And that's another thing, kind of related, kind of unrelated. But like when I have an item listed on eBay with a buy it now price, when people come to me and say like what's the absolute lowest you'll take or how much, it's like I started with a number. If you want to come back at me with a number, feel free to, but don't come to me asking me to bid against myself. Like I already set the number at 100. I'm not going to just volunteer down to 80. If you want to offer 80 and then we might go back and forth, but like I've initiated the transaction by making the eBay listing, by making my item available for sale, and I put a price to it. So if you're going to initiate a transaction with me, like, hey, I want to sell you something, start with a number. Even if it's a little high, that's fine. Like if it's 5 grand market value and you just say, oh, hey, I know, like I've had some successful collection purchases where I comped all this out. It's worth 5 grand today. I know you're a dealer. I know you're going to flip it. I know you need to pay your fees and you need to make money. And then they've been like, yeah, we'll knock 30% off that. So you can pay your 10, 15% fees and you can make a little bit. And sometimes, depending on the item, that's not enough margin that I want to buy it sometimes, but other times it is. If it's a highly liquid item, again, market price is a range too. So if the market price is between 1,000 and 1,500 and we call it a 1,200, it's more likely we can do a deal at 80% of that because we're towards the lower end of the range. If market price is 1,000 to 1,500 and you want to value it at 1,500 and you want me to pay 80% of that market price, high end market price, it's not going to happen. So it's all very variable.
It's amazing the amount of time that you actually spend if you really quantify it and try and quantify how much time you spend just trying to decide whether or not a product is of value and liquid enough to where you want to take the shot at some of these things. It's quite interesting how much you just automatically do it and you don't really think about it. But it'd be really interesting if you could actually quantify how many times you sit there and go, how many should I do that? Should I buy that? Should I not buy that? And is 80% high enough, or do I need to be at 70% to make this work at, a value in order for me to make this work? Because I'm going to sit on it for so many months, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just interesting as as for you for full-time business, or even me for part-time, how many times you do that in a day when you're talking to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So,
And it's a very cash flow dependent thing too. Like where I've been for my entirety back in the hobby, 1 year full time, 7 years before that part time, I've always been flush with inventory. I've always been very heavy on inventory. The dynamic changes. If I'm extremely cash rich and very inventory poor, I might be more prone to paying a higher percentage. But historically speaking, I've had less cash than I'd desire, and I've had way more inventory than I can keep up with. So that's still a place that I'm at.
yeah, I mean, that's it. There's a lot of variables that go into it when you're trying to make these decisions. And like you said, if you need inventory, you're willing to spend more money. And that comes back to that supply and demand issue that you could talk about with any of the niche markets, whether you're a business or an investor inside of this. The supply and demand, if you need a supply of inventory, you're willing to spend more money to get that inventory. If you've got a ton of inventory, you're really not willing to spend a lot of money because you don't have the demand for that to be in your hands. So it's really, that's exactly how even I look at it. A lot of times it's just supply and demand. I need inventory. I need this product. This is how much I'm going to spend to do that. And that's just to get it. Because I know I can sell it. I know I can get at least a good margin out of it, a decent margin. Granted, I could have made more earlier on, but now I absolutely have to have this because I got people that want it. So, and it's a really interesting system when it comes down to it, the supply and demand issues that you
Yeah.
continually run into. So, going back on track here now, the next question is, and I think this would be great for a lot of people that are new, just starting out on some of these paths, is what is one mistake that you made that you could advise others to avoid?
There's always like the go-to that I always do is consulting professionals. In 2011, predating my time with Pokemon, but I've been active on eBay for like 15 years. Before Before Pokemon cards, I did coins, video games, I did collectible like beer steins, beer trays, beer coasters, things like that. Um, 2011, I got hit with my first PayPal 1099. I think that's going to be happening to a lot of people in
Mm-hmm.
January and February of 2023. So this will be relevant in the near future. I got hit with that first 1099. Problem was it wasn't for $600 like some people will be getting hit with. I did like 100 grand in gross sales in 2011, mostly selling silver. Anyone involved in silver, precious metals, there was a silver bubble around that time that peaked at about $50 an ounce. And I did well in 2011 with silver. I sold a lot of it. I transacted a lot of it on the way up. I did have more of it than I should have at the top of the bubble. But yeah, I got hit with that 1099. Up until then, I had done my taxes myself. I had to scramble last minute. I had to pay more than I would have had to otherwise. I had to undo some things that I did the wrong way. And if I had just consulted a professional earlier, consulted an accountant earlier, it would have went way smoother. I'm glad that all happened though, because now when the numbers got a lot bigger in 2020, I was more ready. I was still a little bit behind on certain things. I should have been more actively engaging because in 2021, I transitioned into an S corporation. That's not tax advice for you. That's just what worked for me, determined by my accountant. But had I transitioned to an S corporation 1 year earlier, I would have saved 5 figures on my tax bill in 2020, having done that sooner. So literally just operating the same way, just written on paper differently, paying an attorney $1,000 to incorporate, and then paying my accountants $1,000 a year to do different. The answer was incorporation to save a lot of money. It really pays itself back way more than the cost of it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's probably the one thing that I would really suggest. And I know probably a few months ago, I know we were doing a live with Jake on Pokenomics, and that came up also. And it's like, I'm not a tax advisor in any way, shape, or form, but I will say having an accountant on staff is definitely a must. It's definitely something that I would suggest for anybody that's looking at doing even a part-time business. I mean, if you're to the point where you're turning money pretty regularly, you should probably be at least talking to an accountant. Even me, I've taken my stuff to an accountant just to have them be sure I'm on the right track.
Yep.
Um, our main business is an S corp, just like you said. We went to an S corp quite a few years ago for the same reasoning. I mean, by doing so, we went from an LLC to an S corp. We spent $1,000 for the attorney, or at that time I think it was like $850 attorney fees. Got that all taken care of, and it was like instant savings, huge savings on our tax returns, just because our accountant was looking at our business. Went, yeah, you're turning so much money, and you're missing all of these deduction opportunities because of your structure. If you're starting and you're making over $600 on multiple, I mean, if it's one site, even myself, I can hide. $600 on one site isn't enough to where I would be sitting there freaking out and changing my structure. But if you've got multiple sites where you're starting to make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars, even a couple thousand on two sites, I would talk to your tax accountant, or at least get an accountant on hand to go once a quarter and just say, hey, this is where I'm at. Would there be a good time before the end of the year to switch my business opportunity, or my stance, in order to be able to save or keep myself out of trouble with taxes? Because I don't want to spend $5,000 in taxes this year because I didn't switch my licensing to, or get a business license, or have the right things in place.
Yeah.
Number one most important thing if you are in a Pokemon business.
I think the most important thing is you've got to enjoy it. You've really gotta you've gotta enjoy what you're doing. And that's broader than a Pokemon business. Life is pretty short. You can't be doing something just chasing money if it's leaving you miserable. I very likely could have made more money. Dan 10, 20, 30 years from now would probably have a higher net worth having stayed a chemical engineer and doing this on the side, or really playing the political game that I didn't want to play, climbing the ladder, kissing the right butts in the corporate space. I didn't want to do any of that. I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I wouldn't have liked the person that I would have had to have become. So yeah, you've really gotta enjoy it. There's a lot of different ways you can make money in life. And I don't think it makes sense to play in this space. In 2020, a lot of people did because it was lucrative, it was quick, easy. That's not sustainable. Clearly, it didn't last. It popped. There's still a lot of opportunities though, but being passionate, being engaged, enjoying it is going to just make you that much better. Generally speaking, if you're engaged and you know what you like, if you like things, what you like is, I mean, some people like really weird niche stuff that's never going to move anywhere. If you like bulk energies from ETBs and you want to collect 1 million of those, not the greatest investment. But generally speaking, if there's things that you like, if there's things that you stand out to you that you think are good value relative to their market value, there's probably going to be more people on that same headspace, in that same mindset as you. So you're just more likely to make smart plays if you're engaged and actually passionate in the space. So yeah, I think, and that ties in with like enjoying the community and enjoying the people that you engage with. Like I love these conversations. I very much appreciate that you had me on. I love chatting with new people, getting on different channels, engaging with other people's communities. So yeah, I love everything about the hobby. I love everything about the space. And some people say you shouldn't mix business with pleasure, or you shouldn't turn a hobby into a full-time business, but I've had a great experience so far, a year in.
Yeah, and I've always disagreed with people that say that if you enjoy it, you should probably not make it your full time job. It's like, why would I want to go to work miserable every day? You
Yeah.
know, like you said, I did machining, and as a machinist, I was always miserable. The first couple years are fine, but as you said, in a kind of like contained space where you're in a building with a work structure or people that are always there as bosses and stuff, you start playing the political game. It never fails. There's always the political game inside of the business, and like you could go into extreme detail of this, which I'm not going to either, but it gets old. And if you're
Yeah.
miserable, I mean, I hated going to work at some point. When I first started, I worked 20 hours overtime a week just because I enjoyed my job and I did it well and I loved doing it. But then after 3 years, 4 years of being in that building with people, it's like, you get in the political game. It's like, I don't want to be with these people anymore. They're here for themselves and they're willing to just throw you under every bus that they can to get a little bit of advantage in their opinion. And it's just not worth it. And that's why I ended up going back to HVAC is that I've done it since I've been 8 years old, but I've always loved doing it. It's new locations, it's new people, it's new customers. Every job is a puzzle. Everything changes all the time. And it's the same thing going into even doing the Pokemon stuff. When I started doing YouTube, I always thought that it was just going to be maybe a short term thing. My son wanted to do it, because he was watching Leonhardt and PokeRev and all these people on because of course they were blowing up with the hobby. So you've seen him, and the reason I started my channel, I always laugh, was because I wanted to show him that anybody can do YouTube. I mean, you can get a camera and a mic, and realistically, most people can do YouTube at least to a point. You may not be successful, but you can at least do it. And I love the conversations that it's led to. When I started going into the lives and discussing things and doing the channel more like this style, where I'm having conversations with, Dan at Catch 'em All Collectible and Mason Berry and going through with Jake with Pokemon, you learn so much and you're engaged. And that engagement makes this hobby exciting and fun and keeps you interested. Because I might talk to you and come up with, well, if you do this, you could do it whatever over here. And it's like, wow, that's kind of cool. If I never even looked at it that way, but because I'm engaged in talking, you're constantly growing in this community, and it makes it a lot more fun and entertaining. And I think that's anybody in a collectible. If you can engage in a community, the community that's out here and most collectibles that I've been in are fantastic. I honestly, there isn't a community in Pokemon that I could say that I absolutely think is toxic and you should stay away from it. And it's just, I think that it's a must. I think community and engagement in that will make the hobby just that much more enriched for anybody.
Yeah.
So, next question I got here is going to be, knowing what you do now, would you still start your Pokemon business if you were given a redo on life?
If anything, I might do it sooner. So yeah, I obviously hindsight is 2020.
Mhm.
Pun intended. 2020 was insane. I quit. I put in my 2 week notice in July of 2021. So yeah, I if I could have done that in July of 2020, knowing having the hindsight, I would be in so much better of a place. But I wouldn't say I regret not leaving earlier. It all worked out great because I am where I am today and I'm very happy. That old cliche thing. But yeah, absolutely. The main pros being like the flexibility of being your own boss, being able to just punch out whenever I want to, go to the movies with the family, go to the beach with the family, go to the zoo, whatever I got to do whenever I want to do it. That said, when you're doing those things, you're not making money. So you can't take that to the extreme. You can't just decide to not work ever. I'm still, I stay strict, relatively strict with a schedule of like 8 to 4:30, Monday to Friday. And then periodically I do after 9 p.m. as we are now, once the kids are in bed and the wife's working on some of her stuff as a teacher, schoolwork preparation. So yeah, I would absolutely do it. Very, very, very glad I took the leap. Very glad I had the fortune that 2020 brought me, giving me the foundation. I mean, very, very glad I have the support network around me too. My wife wasn't what are you talking about? You can't quit your job as an engineer to sell Pokemon cards. Very, very supportive. She
Mhm.
I mean, I made it easy for her to support me with all the money that I made in 2020. But
Yeah.
she supported it from 2014 to 2019 when it was making no money, when I wasn't taking any money out. And then 2020 was very bountiful and yeah, but the financial foundation, the support structure as far as like my household, my family goes, very glad with all of it.
Yeah. And I will say it, tell anybody whenever they're starting a business or if you're even getting pretty in depth with something, be sure your significant other's involved. Just a
Yeah.
simple conversation will save a lot of hassle in the future when it comes down to it. It sometimes I know even I do it. You don't think your wife is interested or your significant other is interested in, what you're doing. But if you start talking to them, it's actually amazing the interest that they can take into it and how much more supportive they are of like this. Here I am 9 o'clock at night down in my basement room, my studio, sitting here having a conversation with someone, and it's fine. She understands why I'm doing it. She understands reasoning behind it, and it makes it so much easier. And it makes it a lot more easier to be successful in something if you have that backing moving forward.
Yeah.
So, last question I got here before we'll just go into a free discussion if we have anything is going to be do you think there is room in the hobby for an at home Pokemon business today?
Yeah, I guess with this question, context very much matters. A question that I get relatively frequently: if you were to start over as you did in 2014 with $5,000 today, could you do it? And my answer is, if you go into it the same way that I did as a hobby, not really needing or expecting money, absolutely yes. A lot of things have changed since 2014. The hobby is so much bigger, liquidity is so much higher. So in some ways it's easier, in some ways it is harder, to be fair. It's still really hard, I think, to get into wholesale distribution. It's really hard to get in with them because why do they take on new accounts when they sell out all the good stuff anyways? They have really low motivation to do that. Even if you were to get in, you would be offered battle styles, you would be offered fusion strike boxes that are selling at 90 and they'd be selling them to you for 86.50. So, but the collection opportunities are still out there. Grading is in a weird place. CGS is there with quick turnaround times. PSA is coming back. PSA does have 30, which theoretically is supposed to be done in 3 to 5 months or something like that. So it's absolutely possible, but expectations need to be tempered. Do I think that someone could quit their job today, starting from scratch with $5,000 and start pulling out $5,000 a month? Absolutely not. My recommendation, if somebody wants to do this full time, would be to just keep your day job, start dipping your toes in, go in with a fixed budget, whatever you have. And again, if you're money poor and more time rich, grind out the singles, grind out TCG player, grind out eBay, grind out collections, a little bit of grading, do a little bit of all of it. That's what I did. Or pick your own niche, pick what you excel best in, pick what you enjoy the most, and then go for that. Again, the hobby being so much bigger, the liquidity being there. Not only that, information is so much more accessible. E4 was around and I joined it back in 2014 when I started, but it wasn't. Now you've got so many more YouTube channels such as ours putting out information. You've got the presentation is better and there's even more. Because like when I started in 2014, E4 was there was a decent amount, but now there's 8 years further of E4. There's 8 years further of just the amazing articles and guides and things that people have put out there. I've done my best to put out analytical type stuff, research that I do, numbers that I find. I do my best to put all that out there that I can. And there's so many other great people putting out information. Some paid, a lot of it free though too. So yeah, if you were to do it, go in with a fixed budget, dip your toes in, don't quit your day job until you get that solid foundation that I had when I left mine. If you decide you want to go full time, but part of it might be you might take that $5,000, 10 grand, 50 grand, $50, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. You might do it for a month, a year. You might hate it. You might be able to be successful at it, but going back to our last point, you might not have the passion. You might not want to be packing 50 orders every Monday and shipping them out. You might not want to be pulling singles for TCG player, doing a direct fulfillment order. So for more reasons than one, dip your toes in, take it slow and see if it fits and then go from there. But if you put in the time, it absolutely can be done. It maybe not a 1-for-1 replication. I don't think 6 years from now you're going to get that rocket emoji boom to the moon like I was fortunate enough to get. But even absent 2020, actually, I got a really good question recently. Would you still have quit your job ultimately for Pokemon had 2020 not happened? My answer was, I think so, basically. Just to summarize my answer, I never intended to be at my original job for more than like 20 years. I was on like an early retirement path with how much I saved. If Pokemon just sustained its steady growth that it had from 2014 to 2019, I probably could have quit my job in a few years to do it full time, having never stonked out to the moon and had such a crazy thing. So it's possible.
That's even like going back to that point you just said is even 29. I have no intention of quitting my day job. I've had people ask me, you're planning on opening an LGS or you're planning on doing online sales, things like, no, I don't plan on doing any of that because I see steady growth in the market. I see a nice little side business where if I want to spend some time in the winter when I have it, I can push, and when I'm busy, I can, just let it slide back. It's not like I need to be. The nice thing is that YouTube is probably the most constraining thing I have. And anybody that's doing YouTube or any of the YouTube creators that are watching this know, in order to get views on YouTube, you need to be consistent and you need to be involved pretty regularly. Yeah, you got to stay in front of that algorithm. And you miss one video and all of a sudden you lose that wave, and it takes you 15 videos to catch that wave again that you had. So YouTube is probably the most constraining thing that I do. But my actual collecting and my sealed product investing and my raw selling is just not as constraining. And I don't ever plan on going full time with it. I just find it to be a relaxing. I want it to remain relaxing to me. To just come down here, search the internet. If I want to go and spend 5 hours just digging around through eBay or all these places, even going now, going over to Japanese stuff now. I love digging through their marketplaces, trying to find, those promo cards and things that I didn't even know were there. There's a lot of stuff out there that still is 3 years into this hobby again. I still sit there and see things that are like, wow, I did not know that was there. And that is really cool to see.
Yeah.
So, and that makes it a lot of fun still.
Yeah, eight years in, I'm still buying collections that have cards that I've never owned before. I'm still learning of the existence of brand new cards like that they might be 10, 15 years old, 20 years old, and I never knew they existed. So it's such a broad, diverse hobby. There's so much room for new businesses, so much room for new hobbyists, new collectors, investors, flippers, scout, whatever you want to call them, whatever you want to call yourself. There's a lot of room.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, even in the raw market or any of the sealed product, as long as you start out with the right mindset that you use expendable money, you set a budget right away, and then my biggest suggestion is just take your time. Patience
Mm-hmm.
is key, especially starting out. This isn't 2020 where you're trying to stay in front of stuff and pick things up at Walmart and run home and get it listed right away to try and catch that money. I mean, now it's time, like you said, it's the grind, and that's 2019. That's how I even started. I came in with 3 grand, and I went, okay, I'm gonna grind this out and just continually try and buy collections, pull them apart, sell them on the grind, make a couple bucks per card, or at the time doubling up on the price of whatever I paid for the cards. And if I was doing that, then I was doing exactly what I needed to keep moving forward. And then, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, just the luck. I mean, 2020 was honestly, if you were ahead of this before 2020, it was just all luck.
Yeah,
Crazy luck. But
definitely.
never expected, but crazy luck. And it was good timing for, I think, a lot of, you know, I want to say the 2019 and older, like yourself, back 20, because a lot of people came in 2016 too. There's a good grouping of people that came in at that point with Pokemon Go release that came back to the hobby because they saw it. And I'm not gonna lie, I almost did, but I wasn't in the right spot. My wife was pregnant. I had a not even a 1 year old, and my wife was. We were already trying for a second one. And it's like, yeah, no, that
Yeah,
I'm nowhere near in a position to be putting any kind
picking
of
up.
money into that. So,
Yeah,
and then 2019 came and my son started pulling packs on his own, so that was cool. Unbroken Bonds. That's what I said. That was a fun set when I actually a really good set to come back to. It was Unbroken Bonds. It was a fun set to pick up and open.
yeah. My son's 4 and my daughter's about to turn 2, so they're getting to the age where a new set comes out. I hand them a few packs. I'm always a little nervous, like I'm a little nervous that they're gonna pull like Moonbreon or something and then just instantly fold it in half because
Sure.
occasionally they're pretty rough with cards, but
Yeah.
usually the hits are no good and it's not a big deal. But um
And
yeah,
Jacob's been
it's fun
yeah
when you can share it with the kids.
yeah, and Jacob and Abby, both my 2 older kids, like it. I mean, Jacob's 7 and Abby's 5 now, and they're to the age where Jacob gets a hit and he's instantly like, "Where's my sleeves? Where are my sleeves?" He
Yeah.
sleeves everything, which is what we talk about when it comes down to the value of this in the future. I mean, let's be honest. In 1999, I don't think I didn't even know what sleeves were.
No,
Most of them,
I had binders but no sleeves.
yeah,
They just
I
went straight into the binder pages after spending the day in my pocket probably.
yeah, back pocket finds.
Yeah.
But yeah, we used to have like our binders for like sports cards because I had baseball cards and football cards at the time, and they went right in the backside of the binder when I got home after
Yeah.
throwing them on the playground and trading with 6 people because I liked Alakazam or I liked Flareon, so I was trading anybody and anyone that I could to get those cards. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, no, it's just that was always the fun thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's exciting to see a new generation, our kids getting into it, and I think overall, I think that that's great for the hobby. I think that we'll see some really good things. And once again, it comes down to that patience thing. We're not going to see it in the next 10 years. This is a 15-year to 20-year investment waiting for our 5 to 12-year-olds to get to the age where we are, where they start
Yeah.
getting expendable money to join back into the hobby.
Yeah, I think it is really promising. Everything Pokemon's doing, getting into the Happy Meals. My wife's a teacher, and every year she's got a few kids that are into Pokemon pretty heavily. I've got some young nieces and nephews. I've got my own kids. I've got some other friends and stuff who have younger relatives, younger kids who are into it. The franchise seems alive and well, very, very strong. It's We got it. The future looks bright, I think, for
Yeah.
the overall Pokemon IP.
Yeah, the IP itself, I get a lot of people, and I'm going to ask you. You think in 15 years we'll still be talking about Pokemon?
I definitely think so. 15, definitely. 50. 50 is tougher. 50 is a long
Yeah.
time. But yeah, 15, I'm quite confident. I honestly, I'm one who thinks that we'll go through another lull. I think we'll go through another lull. Maybe not as low as Diamond and Pearl, Platinum,
Yeah.
EX era, anything like that. I think Pokemon has certain things that they could pull out to generate hype to prevent it getting that low. But yeah, I do think I mean, 2020 was a boom, a mania, a bubble, whatever you want to call it. We've retracted from there, but still, we gained a ton. A lot of them fell off. We're left with a bigger base than we had in 2019. And even if we end up with a smaller base 2, 5, 10 years from now for some time, I don't see any reasonable path that Pokemon is just going to be dead and gone within 15 years. There's some percentage chance. There's some paths towards it, but they are very, very low percentage. Very, very low.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I think that we're going to start getting that constant kind of influx. I feel that we're at an advantage point now in the Pokemon TCG where in 15 years we're going to have that, people that came back like you, 2014 to 2016. They're going to have their kids or, they're going to come back to it at that point. And then you got now 19 to 21. You're going to have that cycle. And I think you might see a little bit more shorter cycles. Just like any industry, you get that up and down. So 99 was an excitement, and then it just kind of fizzled out until 2004 or 5, where really it got to its really low point again. And then 2016, you got that next wave up, then it kind of went down again. But like you said, every time you do it, you build a little bit better base, a little bit bigger as it keeps going.
Yeah.
And the next cycle may not be 20 years to get that next cycle. It may be 15 or 14 years. And they just start getting tighter and tighter and tighter until you look at sports cards. Now it's, yeah, you had the junk wax era in there, but realistically, that hobby has done extremely well for years. It's just people continually come back into it because they're going back for their childhood. And as that happens, the base continues to grow and grow and grow and grow and become more stable, more consistent.
Oh. And when we've got new species like my boy Quaxley coming out right here, yeah. I think the future looks bright.
Yeah, I'm gonna be kind of interested to see how Scarlet and Violet does. I think that's gonna be a cool change, a cool step over into the next generation of Pokemon, next era, and hopefully we can see that maybe draw in some new people also.
Yeah. I haven't played the games in so long. I still buy them all, and I tell myself I'm going to get back to them at some point. I definitely will, but I don't know when that'll be. I have them all ready to go once I have the time to start playing them.
Yeah, and I know my son's got most of them, but I have not gotten back into them. It's just I'm still Game tough. Boy. I actually have my cell phone. I laugh. I have a Game Boy emulator, and I still go back and play Pokemon Yellow on it all the time. Yeah. I started off on Red, and then I had Pikachu, so I wanted Pikachu to follow me around. So I bought Pokemon Yellow just to have it. But yeah, now I just go on my emulator and I play Pokemon Yellow and cruise around and do it time trials to see how fast I can get through the maze of things to get through the final or the Elite 7 or Elite 4.
The emulators are nice too because you can do like 2x speed. You can you can do different things. You can speed them up and yeah.
Yeah, so you're not taking forever to walk. I know I've got mine always at like 4x because that way I can walk faster. Time moves just faster, but it's not. It's still moving quicker, so you don't have to wait.
Yeah.
So no, like I said, I think that the hobby's promising. I think that we've got some good opportunities ahead of us. If you want to join the hobby and at least I know in the sealed and the raw collecting, there's plenty of opportunities still here. As you said, I think a lot of the areas have some really good potentials in it, and really you can do fairly well. I think if you're patient don't rush. Don't go and spend, like I just had someone comment on my video and I haven't gotten to responding to it. He bought 185 Charizard UPCs pre-ordered.
185.
That's his first
Wow.
purchase. He said, "This is my first investment purchase." I'm like, oh, whoa. God, I hope you at least got them at the, 119 and you weren't paying like every pre-order I see is like 200 right now, $180 for pre-orders on that.
So he put like 30 something grand into it.
Probably pretty close. I didn't put out the numbers. I just saw the comment on the older video and I was like, oh wow, that's a
That's a
huge number.
play. That's
That's
a
a
big
play.
play.
But
I, I like the pre-sale seller. If I had to choose a position, buying the pre-sale at 200 or selling it at 200, I'm taking the selling at 200 all day.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's just it. I mean, for me, and see, that's where I tell you talk about too. I've actually gotten to the point where because I play in tournaments and I'm at the LGS all the time. Once again, it comes back to that networking and communicating
Mm,
and being engaged. I got to know the shop owners for like all my local LGSs because I'm there, every week or every 2 weeks at each one of their shops, at least playing a tournament or doing something small. Pre-release tournaments, I'm always at the pre-release tournaments. Just did Lost Origins here last weekend, or this weekend here, and then they had one last weekend. But did the Lost Origins here last weekend, and it was a lot of fun.
yeah.
Absolutely enjoy it. Absolutely get to know them shop owners because you'd be amazed that sometimes like me, hey, this is what I do. This is what I do on the side, and I get booster boxes at cost. I just pay them for their costs, and I give them like $3 a box because sometimes they get too much for what they think there's going to be. Like hot sets, like Brilliant Stars. I didn't get that opportunity because they're
Yeah.
smart about it. They're not going to give up their opportunity to sell booster boxes at $120 to $125 a piece to $140. But
Yeah.
like Astral Radiance, I was able to pick them up at $76 a box,
Oh
and
wow.
I got
Yeah.
4 cases of them from my LGS just because he got his allocation and he went, well, I don't have the pre-orders. Nobody's pre-ordering this set.
Yeah.
So am I going to be able to sell this, or how long am I going to sit on this now that I've got it coming? So he was willing to go, well, I'll sell you 4 of them. And then I know people from tournaments. And of course I just distribute it out and make $15, 10, $15 a box. So I'm not making huge money either.
Mm,
But once again, if you get those connections, you get that communication, you get that put together, there's great opportunity to get those positions, to get
mm.
advantages without, for me being a sealed product person, I don't have to try and get into a distributor. I don't have to come up with 10 grand every time a new set comes out, or they want me to carry, because I looked at that at one point. Of course, they don't want you just carry Pokemon. No, you got to carry Magic, and you got to carry Flesh and Blood, and you got to carry, if you purchase from them, they want you to purchase multiple TCGs, or they want you to buy a certain amount, and that's just not
Mm.
feasible for most people.
Yeah.
So, well, Dan, do you have anything else that you would like to discuss?
Nothing in particular. It was a good conversation. I really appreciate you having me on. As you said, I think we met before on Jake's channel one time
Yep.
in a conversation, but it's cool to be able to engage more directly with you for a
Mm-hmm.
longer period of time, and hopefully one of these days at a convention we can meet in person.
Yeah, I'm trying to get out there. Are you going to Denver?
Yep.
I'm trying to get out there. I'm working it. I'm trying to get the final
Denver
okay from the.
Denver seems like the one to go to. Not to
It
induce
does.
FOMO, but not
Yeah,
to peer pressure too much, but a lot of people are going to that one.
it sounds like it. A lot of people that I am involved with in the community, a lot of even like your channel and Jake's and all that kind of creators are really pushing to get to that one. So that's where I'm trying to get to, just to actually meet people face to face
I
instead of.
think everyone you have lined up for this series, everyone you had on your thumbnail, I think is going.
I think so. Yep. I pretty much think everybody on here, and yeah, I think even a couple more that I have lined that I've been working on because I was just
Yep.
talking. I'm gonna send out a message to Ancient Mewtwo. Join onto this. I want to see him in his Halo helmet.
Yep.
He'll do the conversation in his Halo helmet, but he does a lot with raw. I mean, he does a lot of raw cards, purchasing, buying, selling, and trading. So once again, another one of those little niche markets that I'm working on this series to bring in. So I think this will be a lot of fun. I think this will be, I think this will be informative to a lot of people that are coming new to the hobby, which is the goal of this series, is to give everybody kind of a taste of each one of the niches. And that way you got a really good feeling for where you may want to try. Maybe you do want to try PSA after you talk to a couple people that do PSA cards. Maybe you want to try and do the collection buying in a small part-time business to work towards that as a goal if you enjoy it. But, that's one thing in the hobby I've noticed it's missing is the actual tale or how you do what you do. We all kind of break it down. If you were to watch like 100 videos, even me, you watch 175 of my videos, yeah, you'd get all the bits and pieces, but how do we bring it together so it's useful?
Distilling it into one episode, yeah.
Exactly. So that was the point of this series, is just distill all of these big content creators or big people in the hobby that are seeing a lot and condense this down into a good nurturing thing for you to understand where you may want to fall. So next person I have coming up too, just as let everybody know, is going to be Mason from Cardinal Gamings. He will be the next person or victim, depending on how Dan feels after this one. But yeah, we're going to have an LGS, LCS owner and how he feels in pretty much the same format, slightly modified questions for the hobby, but we're going to try and kind of just try and change things up a little bit for his particular niche or niche. But realistically, I want to get everybody's kind of the same responses to see the differences between each one of the niches. So once again, Dan, thank you for joining us. Have you got anything else to say before we leave?
Nope. Thanks for having me. Thanks everyone for watching. Be sure for Northwoods, you like, subscribe, ring that bell, do all the good YouTube stuff. Really looking forward to watching the remainder of the series, everyone else you have on.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be going through with this. And once again, also, I'll have the link down below in the description for Dan's channel. Of course, be sure you like and follow Dan also. He brings up some very good information and also some really good openings. I enjoy your openings when you do them. So definitely a great channel to go check out. Other than that, we will see you next time here on Northwoods TCG.